Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Goodness John and today I'm going to be showing us how to make this guitar dress. If there's something you're interested in learning, please stick with me to the end of the video. In this video, I'll just be showing us how I draft and cut the pattern, and in the next video, I'll be showing us how I sew the dress. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for your support, but if this is your first time seeing me on your screen, please click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post a new video. Alright then, let's get into the video. So I'll be using this fabric to make the dress. I have 3 yards of this. If you're smaller, you could use less fabric, and if you're bigger, you'd need more. But for me, I'm going to be using 3 yards. Now to the pattern drafting. So we'll start with drafting the upper body. First, I'll apply my shoulder measurement, which is 14. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. So I'll just mark that on the pattern. On this pattern, I'm going to be using the exact measurement. I'm not adding any allowance to it, so just my exact measurement. I'll add the allowance when I'm transferring to fabric. Next, I'll be applying my vertical measurements for the upper body, which are my bust length, under bust length, and waist length. Next, I'm going to measure the neckline, which is 3 inches by 3 inches. Then I'll use a curved ruler to connect it to get the neck curve. So now to the shoulder. Remember, I measured my shoulder point at 7 inches. So at that point, I'll drop by 1 inch and then connect it to the neck curve. From that 1 inch drop, I'll measure my chest line. So my chest line is round bust divided by 6 plus 1.5, and mine is 7 3/4. So I'll just mark that and draw a line across. Next, I'm going to draw a line to connect the shoulder to the chest line so I can get my armhole. Afterwards, I'll measure that line and divide it by 2. So I'm just bending my tape to get the midpoint and then mark that midpoint. Then at the midpoint, I'll go in by 1/2 inch and then mark that. Then I'll use a curve ruler to connect the point together from the shoulder to the 1/2 inch and to my bust point. So on the chest line, I'll apply my round bust divided by 4. My bust is 38, divided by 4 is 9.5. So I'll just mark that on the chest line. Then I'll take a curve ruler and connect from the shoulder to the 1/2 inch to the bust point to get my armhole curve. Now I'm just labeling my line. So my chest, this is my chest line, then my bust length, and then my under bust, and then my waist. The next thing I'm going to do is apply my dart line. So my bust span, which is nipple to nipple, is 7 inches. So I'm dividing that by 2. That's 3.5. So I'll mark 3.5 on the waist, the bust, and the under bust, and then I'll use a ruler to connect the lines. Next, I'm going to do the dart line for the shoulder. So these are the 2 dart lines we'll be using. So I'm just measuring the shoulder from between the neck and the shoulder and then dividing that by 2 and marking that point. So after I've marked it, I'll use a ruler to draw a line from that point to meet the bust point. To create my dart, I would measure 1/2 inch at both sides of the dart line and mark it at the waist. Next, I'm going to take my ruler and connect it to the under bust from the 1/2 inch on both sides to the under bust. So after I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is apply my round body measurement. So my round bust is 9.5, so I'll apply that on the bust line. And then I'll apply my waist measurement. So my waist is 28, divided by 4 is 7. So I'll mark 7, and then remember I took 1/2 inch on both sides, that's 1 inch. So I'll add that to the measurement, and then I'll connect the waist measurement to the bust measurement. So next we're going to be drafting like a mini bustier just to give it shape so it's not laying flat against the bust. Can you see I marked the 1/2 inch at the under bust area as well? So I'm just going to be connecting the 1/2 inch at the waist to the 1/2 inch at the under bust with a straight line. So I'm just going to connect that straight up. Just take the measurement from the waist all the way up to the under bust. Next, I'm going to use a curved ruler to connect from that point to the bust line. So just a slight curve. So I'm going to just connect it all the way to the bust point. Now for the upper bust area, I'm going to go in up the chest line by 1.5 inch. You can make yours 1. But don't make it too high. Remember, it's a Milkmaid bustier. It's supposed to go from the top of the bust to under the bust. So if it's too high, it's going to look weird. So I'm just marking the 1.5 inch on the that line, the shoulder that line, and then I'll create my dart. So I'm going on it on the sides of this line by 1/2 inch on both sides, and then I'll connect it to the bust point with my curved ruler. Next, I'll measure the 1.5 inch from the chest line and mark it across the top. Now label center front and side front so I don't get it mixed up when I start cutting. So now I'll go ahead to emphasize my lines because this pattern is going to be split the bustier region, the band, and the strap. So this area from the under bust to the waist will be my band. So I'm going to cut out the pattern. I'll be using this same pattern to cut the back and to cut the front. So I would explain when I'm cutting what the differences between the back and the front are. Now cut off the band and close the dart. You can use your front pattern to create the back pattern. So use a pattern paper before transferring to fabric. But I wouldn't be doing that. I'll just be using the same pattern to cut out on fabric. So I'll be cutting everything on fabric instead of cutting a new pattern for the back. Okay, so I'm going to be having my fabric unfold to draft for the back pattern. So I'm just going to fold it and leave 1.5 inch allowance for the zip. So I'm going to have zip at the center back. So I'm leaving 1.5 inch allowance at the center back so that I can have allowance for my zip. So I have 1.5 inch at the side for the joining, 1.5 at the center for zip, 1/2 inch at the top, the bottom, and the armhole. So this is my back pattern. I've cut out 2 pieces. I'll be cutting 2 extra pieces for the lining. So I'm going to have 4 pieces of the back. I'm using this fabric to line the back pattern. I'll fold this and put it aside and start working on the gathers area of the bust. So I'll be using this front pattern I've drafted. I'll replicate that on a pattern and just cut out the same thing because I'm going to be slashing and spreading it. I need to cut out the pattern. So this main front pattern that I've cut out, that is going to be my lining. Now I'm replicating the front pattern so that I can use the new one to do my slash and spread. Now that I have my new pattern, I'm going to cut this main pattern. So I'll cut it up and transfer to fabric. This part is going to be the part under the gathers. So I'll be gathering the slash and spread while I'm slashing and spreading on this part. So I'm trying to decide how I want to slash it. I'm just measuring across the bottom to see how many inches I have to know how many parts I'm going to divide it into. So I have like 9 and some or 8 and some. So I'm going to be measuring 1.1 across all the way to the end. Afterwards, I'm going to take a ruler and connect these marks all the way up. After I've marked it, I'm going to number it so I don't mix it up. So I'll just put this aside for now and start working on the lining area. So I'll take it up to cut it up on the fabric. So for the side, I'm going to cut out 2 of the sides, and then for the center, I'm going to cut it on fold. So it's going to be one piece, but I'm cutting on fold. So I'm going to leave my allowance around the side. It's going to be 1.5 inch allowance I'll be leaving, but every other path is going to be 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch on the sides, 1/2 inch on the bottom, the top, the armhole, but the side is going to be 1.5 inch. So I'll just mark that up and then cut it out. So after cutting, I'll put it aside and cut out the center. So the center, I'm placing it on the fabric. So I'll be placing it at the exact folded point of the fabric, pinning it together, measuring my 1/2 inch allowance around, and then cutting it up. So now this is what I have for the lining area. I cut out 2 pieces for the side and one on fold for the center. I'll put that aside now and try to cut up my band. So the front piece for the band, I'll be cutting on fold. So I'll measure my 1.5 inch allowance at the side and 1/2 inch at the top and at the bottom. But at the center, there wouldn't be any allowance because I'm cutting it on fold. Now to cut the back band, I'll be placing what I've just cut on the fabric and then cutting it. So the difference between the back band and the front band is this: at the center back there is 1.5 inch allowance for zip. So I'm just going to cut the exact thing with the 1.5 inch allowance for the zip. Now to the gathered piece, I'm going to be slashing, cutting it all up, just cutting along the lines I've drawn. So I'm going to be placing this on the fabric on fold. Don't forget our pattern is just half the pattern, like half the body. So on fold it would account for the other part of the body. So I'm placing the center piece, which is number 8, on the center on fold. So I've left a little, because I'm slashing and spreading. I will need to leave spaces between each one I am pinning on the fabric. So I'm just leaving about 1 inch between each one, and then I'm not placing it from the bottom of the fabric. So I'm leaving half an inch for sewing allowance at the bottom and half an inch at the top. So in between I'm going to have 1 inch. Next, I'm going to draw out my allowance and then cut it out. Now to the skirt part of this dress, I'm going to be making a half circle, so 180 degrees flay. So I had 2 yards left, so I'll be taking one end to the other. So this first as a rectangle, and then after I've placed them together, I'll now be taking the other end, so the folded end, and bringing it to the unfolded end, like the open end, as a triangle, a right angle triangle. So the remaining allowance there is for my zip allowance. My zip allowance is 1.5 inch, and then the rest of it will take the rest of the flay. I hope you understand this folding. If you don't understand, you can go back to see what I've just done. So I folded it as a rectangle, one end to the other. Then I folded it as a right angle triangle, leaving 1.5 inch allowance for the zip. Next, I'm going to try to find my waist from the top of the triangle. My waist measurement is 28 divided by 4 is 7 inches. From the top, I'm going to look for where my 7 inches would fit. So because I don't have any side joining or allowance, just my zip allowance, I just need 7 inches to fit from the top. Sorry, at this point my camera cut out the top of the triangle, but I'm going to, whatever measurement I'm measuring from the top, like the peak of the triangle. So I would place my tape at the top and then measure 7 inches. So I'm just starting from 7 inches, and then I just measure it around. And after I've done that, I'll measure the circle I have to see if it gives me 7 inches. So I'll measure around the curve, just taking my tape around the mark I've just drawn. So after I did that, I just have 6 inches, which is not enough. So I'll go back again and remeasure and increase my measurement. So I'll just keep increase my measurement, measure around the curve to see if it gives me my measurement. So I'll just keep doing that until I get the correct place where I would find 7 inches on this triangle. So I found my 7 inches at 9. Next, I'm going to measure the length of the skirt. First, I'll take out my half length. So I have 17 inches. So I'm just removing that what I have at the top and then measuring the full length of uh the skirt. So I'll just measure that across from that curve. I'll just measure all the way across to get the length of my flay. Then I'll cut out the full length, the curve at the full length, and the curve at the waist. This flay is just one piece because there's no joining at the sides. It's just around the zip allowance that I have my joining. Now I'm done with the skirt area. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut out my sleeve with my remaining fabric. So my sleeve is going to be gathered at the shoulder and rubber at the end. I had about 17 inches by 2 yards left. So I'm just splitting that in two for my sleeve. So this is what it looks like. This is what I have. It's just a rectangle that I've cut out for the sleeve. I'm gathering it at the top and using rubber at the end. So it's 36 inches by 17 each piece for each sleeve. So this is all my pieces. Thank you all for watching. I hope this video has been helpful and easy to follow. If you have any questions, drop in the comment section and I'll come back to answer your questions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post a new video. I'll be posting the sewing of this video, so if you're interested in seeing that, just follow me on to my next video. Alright guys, thank you for watching and see you in my next video.